The marvelous school trip to Wondermist Island. Once upon a spring morning, Ms. Maple's third-grade class at Pinehill Elementary was buzzing with excitement. Backpacks were zipped, snacks were packed, and everyone was bouncing in their seats. Today wasn't just any school day, it was the long-awaited field trip to Wondermist Island, a mysterious place off the coast that no class had visited in over 50 years. Rumors whispered that Wondermist Island was magical. Some said the trees could talk. Others believed there were friendly dragons and glowing caves. Most of the adults rolled their eyes when kids asked about it, but not Ms. Maple. She'd smile like she knew something they didn't. "Okay, explorers," she called as the bus pulled up. "Roll call, please," 30 kids shouted, "Here." And with that, they boarded the big blue bus that would drive them to the harbor, the boat with a secret. When they arrived at the docks, a shiny silver boat waited. It was like no boat they'd ever seen. Its sails shimmered even without wind, and its deck had carvings of sea creatures dancing across the wood. "This," said the captain, a tall man with a beard of sea foam and eyes like the ocean, "is the Tide Whisper. She only sails for those with curious hearts." "Woo," breathed the students. As the boat left the harbor, fog surrounded them, but it wasn't cold or scary. It smelled like sugar cookies and fresh rain. Suddenly, whoosh! A pod of dolphins leapt beside the boat, each one sparkling like stars. Then, as fast as it came, the fog lifted, and they saw it, Wondermist Island. Rolling hills of rainbow grass waved hello. Trees with silver bark and golden leaves lined the beach. Parrots shaped like puzzles flew overhead. "Welcome," said Ms. Maple, "to the most magical field trip you'll ever have. The tree that knew your name." The class began their hike into the island's jungle path, where every plant seemed to hum a tune. Butterflies the size of notebooks flitted from flower to flower, and tiny talking mice in safari hats popped out of bushes to say, "G-Day." At the heart of the jungle stood a massive tree with glowing bark and branches that reached the clouds. As each student walked up to it, the tree would whisper their name. "Elliot," it said in a deep, warm voice. "You are brave and clever." "Lana," it whispered next. "Your heart shines like the sun." The students took turns, each beaming at their special message. "How does it know?" whispered Theo. "It sees who you are, Ms. Maple smiled. They had a picnic under the tree, where sandwiches floated onto plates, and lemonade poured itself. Chapter 3. The River of Dreams. Later, they followed a sparkling river that hummed lullabies. When they stepped into boats made of giant lily pads, the river showed them dreams like little movies in the water. Liam saw himself flying on a phoenix. Sarah saw her artwork hanging in a museum. Even Ms. Maple smiled as she saw a young version of herself sailing the Tide Whisper. "Is that you?" asked Ellie. Ms. Maple winked. "Maybe." Suddenly, the river widened into a lagoon where a giant turtle waited. It offered rides to anyone brave. "Enough, climb on," boomed the turtle, whose name was Professor Plunk. And they did, giggling and screaming with joy as he splashed them into the water. Chapter 4. The Forgotten Garden. Deeper into the island, the class found a hidden garden behind a waterfall. It was filled with plants that grew upside down, flowers that sang lullabies, and vines that danced when music played. In the center was a fountain with water that shimmered like moonlight. "This is the Garden of Wonder," said Ms. Maple. "Legend says it grows from children's imaginations." Each student planted a tiny seed in the soil. The seeds immediately sprouted, shaped like whatever the kids imagined: candy trees, storybook animals, even a robot that made jokes. "I made a flying jelly bean goat," laughed Ronan. The garden laughed with them, leaves rustling with joy. Chapter 5. Trouble in the Tower. Just as the sun began to set, a strange wind blew. Ms. Maple's smile faded. "The beacon tower," she said, pointing to a cliff, "is flickering. That tower keeps the magic of Wondermist alive. Without it, the island might fade away." "Can we help?" asked the class. "We must," she said. They hiked up the cliff, facing silly but tricky challenges, riddles from grumpy trolls, a bridge that only appeared if they laughed, and a cloud that followed anyone who said "I can't." But together, they made it to the top. Inside the tower, they found the light crystal cracked. Only kindness could repair it. The kids held hands and thought of their happiest, kindest memories, sharing snacks, helping a friend, comforting someone sad. The crystal glowed, healed, and the tower blazed with light again. Wondermist Island breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 6. Back to Pinehill the next morning, the class boarded the Tide Whisper again. The island waved goodbye with rainbow waves and singing whales as they docked back at Pinehill. The kids looked at each other. "Did that really happen?" asked one. But in their pockets were gifts. A pedal that played music, a stone that told jokes, a tiny bottle of shimmering mist. Ms. Maple smiled. "Some trips change you forever." And as the kids stepped off the boat, they knew they'd never forget the marvelous school trip to Wondermist Island. The end.